All right, great, thank you. Okay, we're going to call this Finance and Community Development Committee meeting to order on January 14th, 2021 at 5:04 p.m. Let the record show that all members of the committee are present. Item number one would be the approval of the minutes, but since there are no minutes, we will obviously skip that. So item number 2.1 is a draft resolution revising capital project H5110.70, which is the Broad Street parking lot, pages 1 to 4. Can I have a motion for that, please? Gibbs and McFarland. Okay, and everybody has their packets. And if you could please just mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, this is a slight alteration to the Broad Street project capital project, and I believe that Rich, you could speak a little bit. You could speak to this a little bit more intelligently than I can.
Yep, the Broad Street parking lot construction had to be revised for engineering costs that we didn't have originally in the estimated cost, as well as this isn't the one where the city has a matching share, I don't believe. But also had to be separated as to the funding. We're going to get FRB grant funding, and Matt has developed the allocation of that funding between this parking project and the project for the Ernie Pavone lot. So the total cost went up to $251 from the original $200,000 estimate. And you can see the funding allocation that's been put in at the bottom of the right-hand column. Matt, you have any details to add?
Sure. Back in, I believe it was November of last year, the council approved a single change order that covered all of the adjustments to both the Ernie Pavone lot and the Broad Street lot. Because the change order had costs attributable to both capital projects, we had to split it up into the costs attributable to the Broad Street project versus those attributable to the Pavone lot. So this one increases the construction cost for the Broad Street lot by a little over $13K. And it also adds in for the project funding. It adjusts it based on the amount of FRB grant funding that we estimate will be able to be put towards the cost of this parking lot, which is the $83,519.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that carries. Item 2.2, draft resolution, revised capital project H5110.73, 2019 farmers market improvements, page 5 through 9. I'll take a motion. Gibbs, second. Canales. Discussion. I'll turn this over to Mr. Miller and Mr. Marks again.
Yeah, this one is the project to renovate the building, the last building that's left standing at the MLD site down on the waterfront. All the buildings were demolished. This one was elected to be preserved and rehabilitated as the relocated farmers market from the Durkee Street parking lot. And Matt supplied an email and details about the final cost for this. That's also attached to the capital project. We started with $250,000 on this one. There is a matching 10% requirement from the city for the total project costs of $276,600. The city has to come up with $26,660, and the majority of the funds are going to be funded by the Downtown Grant Program or the DRI. That's got an allocation for this particular project. Matt, anything to add?
Sure. The original capital project that covered only the $250,000 that the council awarded to the project through the Downtown Grant Program. This one adds in all of the soft costs, the environmental testing costs, the architectural engineering design costs. All of that gets lumped in here. And as Rich said, there's a 10% city match on all construction funds up to, I believe the figure is 277,778. So we're still a little bit below that for the construction costs. And this is relevant to 3 additional items that are also on tonight's agenda. One is requesting council approval of a supplemental service agreement for AEDA to cover the cost of them managing the second round of bidding. Some of the council probably recall we had bid this project out probably last spring. We got 1 bid in response. It was deemed not to be a complete and valid bid. So we got instruction from the council to rebid the project. So that will cover those additional costs. And this will bring us just about up to where we're at with this project. One thing to consider, there are 2 change orders associated with the farmers market project that are later on the agenda. The cost of those change orders has not been factored into this adjustment to the capital project just because of the timing of it. I didn't have a chance to update the numbers and I didn't get that down to Rick. So we'll certainly do another capital project adjustment when we get a little closer to the end of construction on this project, but this will bring us up to just where we are now.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Oh, hang on.
Sorry, Council.
I didn't unmute fast enough. Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear about this because I know I've had people reach out to me with some questions. I just want to make sure that this is ensuring that the farmers market is moving, that building that we had allocated for its move. I mean, everything is going to go through as planned. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, the stipulated completion date for construction for the farmers market improvements down on Green Street is May 1st. That's in advance of the opening date for the market's 2021 season.
Okay, so it'll be up and ready for the farmers market season this year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carried. Draft resolution, I'm sorry, 2.3 draft resolution revised capital project H5110.65. 2018 Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Plaza, pages 9 through 12. I'll take a motion. Canales and second with Moore. And I believe that was part of that discussion was already covered in the first one where, you know, the monies for both had to be separated out, but it's the same kind of gap funding with the FRB, correct?
That is correct. And the only change to this one is the addition of about $3,720 of additional costs in the last change order. And that change order, like Matt said, is split between the Broad Street location, this location. The lion's share of this has already been borrowed in the October bond issue that we let. The $1,206,244 you see as a 2020 revised cost has already been put in the bank. So the $3,720 is just additional costs that we have to fund. Unfortunately, we can't go back out and borrow that small amount of money, but we'll have to fund it from someplace. But this should finalize the cost for this project according to what Matt has supplied, I believe. That's correct. That should be it for this project.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So what's the total cost on this project then?
$1,209,964.
And that doesn't include the Broad Street project, right? The Broad Street.
No, Broad Street project is separate from that. That's $329,000, I believe. If you go back up to the first project approval we're looking at, it is a total of $329. Nope, that's the farmers market. Sorry, it is a total of $251, $285 so far, and I think that should be pretty much finalized too, Matt, because I think the last piece of that was the guardrail for the Saranac River.
Yeah, both of those projects are completely done.
And if we got the, I know we got granted the FRB money, the 825,000. Have we received that yet?
I submitted the executed grant contract for the 825K through the FRB for the parking projects about 2, maybe 3 months ago. It's not atypical for DOS to take quite a while to turn that around and execute it themselves and get it back to the applicant. So we're still waiting on the executed contract, but I've seen no indication from anyone on their end that the city is not going to get that money. So I'm pretty confident it'll come in eventually.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Item 2.4, draft resolution approving 2020 year-end budget adjustments, pages 13 through 45. I'll take a motion. Canales, second. Gibbs? Discussion. Working with Mark, and Mark, you can correct me again. I am still learning on the job here. So this is the final adjustments to the 2020, wrapping up 2020 budget adjustments for the end of the year. And I believe, Mark, what's the number that we're putting back onto the books after the year end?
I've got an estimate of about 600,000 to 700,000 at this point in time. I don't have a final number yet. We'll probably be closer to that by the last week of January, first week of February. We're still waiting for the sales tax allocation from the county for the last quarter and the accrual for the last month, which is December of the fiscal year for 2020. So that should come in and provide the lion's share of that surplus, because at this point we're pretty much break even based on the current numbers and the projection that I have, not including any sales tax for the last quarter and the last month of the year for December. These entries are merely to close out all the over budget accounts from 2020 that are in all the government funds. MLD is not included in this. Debt service didn't have any accounts that were over budget. So merely what this does is transfer money between accounts within each fund to balance the accounts so they're not overcosted on the appropriation that was approved for spending. We do this every year as a cleanup for the budget roll forward. This wouldn't be exhaustive because obviously there's still some costs rolling in that are going to post against the appropriations that can run these accounts over. It's not a perfect system, but we're pretty damn close this year to being, zeroed out and in balance. There's a total of 171 entries that are here in the highlighted column, and a total of $705,000 across all funds, which isn't that bad when it comes down to looking at the whole budget for the whole year of these government funds, which is, roughly in the $36 million total. 53 million is the rough city budget. 17 million is roughly MLD. So 36 million for all the government funds. To be off 705,000 for appropriations is not too bad.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 2.5, draft resolution approving budget adjustment for mayor's office payroll to municipal association dues and authorization payment of membership dues with NICOM, pages 46 through 55. Can I get a motion? Gibbs and Jeff Moore. So this is a reappropriation of budget funds that are currently budgeted in a mayor's position payroll line. It's about a little more than $5,000 that's getting moved over so that we can join the New York commissioner, the New York, what's that C for? New York Commission. New York Conference of Mayors, which gives us a bunch of access to resources at the state level for just operating our city effectively. There's also networking opportunities and resources that we can leverage through that association.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. What was the amount?
Patrick, these, and also everybody else, all of the amounts and the information for every resolution is in the packet that was sent you as well. But let me look it up, one sec.
It's $5,904.
That is correct.
Thank you.
That's for the municipal association.
Correct.
And NICOM.
Correct.
Together. Okay.
Correct. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, 2.6 draft resolution approving budget adjustments from Finance Department data processing contract services to data processing capital outlay, pages 48 through 54. Can I get a motion, please? Canales, second. Gibbs. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. I saw you over there. Thank you, sir. I'll take a motion by Mike Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. So this is a purchase of a mail sorting machine from the Finance Department, for the Finance Department out of their data processing contract services to purchase this machine. Normally this machine would be leased, and over the course of the lease, it was, Richard could correct me, I think it's also in the resolution, so it was around $19,000, where the purchase of the machine is going to be significantly less. So his approach is to purchase the machine and without the lease costs.
That's all correct, yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have a, there. So Richard, this was the machine that we had spoken about last year, correct? And you had given us quite a lengthy explanation about the need for it, what it would do, and so forth. So this is that same machine, correct?
No, this is the other machine in the inline process for inserting all of the utility billings and envelopes and the inserts. This one applies the postage after that insertion is done. The machine that we talked about before was $29,000 to replace the inserting machine. So that's already been done. It's in. It was just delivered finally this past week and installed, and it's working really fine. One of the examples of how efficient it is, because the other one was failing so much, is they just did a route of 600 mailings for utility bills. Took 14 minutes for this machine to insert those and get them ready for being posted for mail. This postage machine that we're buying now is a replacement for the one that's under lease and has pretty much worn itself out and is due to be replaced. Can't understand why the leasing costs for both of these machines were so astronomical, except for the fact that we were asking for government-based leases so that we could cancel at any point in time if we had to, due to funding requirements. But to purchase this for $7,800 as opposed to leasing it for $19,000 when it's going to have a 5-year life makes more sense financially. I just can't believe the leasing cost, the interest behind it has gone up so high on these leases. So anyway, it's the second machine in line to getting everything out the door and posted for utility billings.
Thank you.
And I have a question about the page number 58. It talks about a maintenance agreement for $800. Is that $800 per year or $800 per month?
That's $800 per year.
Okay, that's a good deal.
That's not bad, yeah. And there's a meter monthly cost of $50
That
for.
was my next question.
Go ahead.
Tell us what that means, a meter rental.
It's a postage meter that has to be rented separately from buying the machine. We can't buy that because it's an item that they have to rent to us or lease to us. So we pay that $50 each month for that as part of the process of being able to handle the metering of the postage for going out into the internet and pulling the postage back in from the payments that we make to the post office in advance of using the postage.
The proposal says meter rental for $75 a month.
Oh, was it? Okay.
That's not a big difference, but
I thought it was 50, but that's,
page 58 of the packet that,
yep. Yeah, you're right. It's 75 a month. Yeah. Because I was looking at other ones where there was one for 50, but on this machine, it's 75. So you're right about that. So that is every month. That's true. The $800 though, it's annual.
have you done any analysis of how much time this is going to save in your office?
Well, the inserting machine is where we're going to get the lion's share of the time saving, because this machine has got the greater capability of inserting multiple page invoices. Currently, we can only, with the old machine, insert 1 and 2 page invoices. This will insert invoices up to 9 pages, I believe, which will still go in a common envelope and, you know, be able to be mailed under the postage code that's called first class bulk mail, or pre-sorted mail, not bulk mail, excuse me, first class pre-sorted mail. It can go up to 9 pieces in one envelope and get the same postage rate. And the machine will be able to sense with the invoices coming in, they'll have a code on them that says this is a 1-page, 2-page, 3-page, 4-page, 5-page, and so forth size invoice. And the machine has the capability of taking those 9 pages, inserting them all, and then skipping back to doing just 1 page on the next invoice and so forth. This will save us probably an hour and a half of hand sorting for each one of the routes that we bill on a weekly basis. We bill 3 times a week. So we're looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours of hand sorting that will go away 3 times a week, because the inserting machine will have the ability to sense the number of pages to be inserted. And of course, the postage machine, since it's the same brand of machine as the inserting machine, they can be linked together so that as soon as everything is inserted, it immediately goes right through the postage machine, doesn't have to be restocked or reloaded. So it's like an inline process that's just going to be inserted and posted and go in a conveyor at the end and right into a pouch to go to the post office.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mark.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried. Item 2.7, draft resolution approving budget adjustment from mayor's office non-payroll compensation to contracted services, page 55. I'll take a motion. Councilor Gibbs, Councilor Canales on the second. Discussion. So this item was a budgeted item for a healthcare payout. If the mayor, I know it's weird talking about myself in third person, but if the mayor were not to take the health care, there would be a buyout. This is a budgeted item from past. I am taking the health care, so there is no buyout. And so this budgeted item is being moved to contract services within the mayor's office to be leveraged for the future. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to community development. 3.1, draft resolution approving construction contract for the Arts Park plumbing work, pages 56 through 71. I'll take a motion, please. Councilor Canales, second. Councilor Moore. Discussion. So as part of the Arts Park development, and Matt Miller, Matt and I talked about this several times over the last few days. Part of the Arts Park construction were the bidding contracts for the plumbing work, and so this is an approval of that contract for the plumbing work.
Help me out here.
Yes.
The plumbing work on the Arts Park.
Yeah, I believe part of the Arts Park includes a water pad or some type of water feature.
Yeah, the bulk of the plumbing work has to do with the installation of the splash pad in the center of the proposed Arts Park and all of the associated infrastructure that goes along with it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3.2, draft resolution approving construction contract for the Arts Park general construction work, page 56 through 71. I'll take a motion, please. Elizabeth Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales. Discussion. So again, this is for the lion's share of the construction work of the Arts Park. Bids were sent out, and this is in approving the construction contract for that general construction work.
And this is all paid by the DRI, right?
Correct. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.3, draft resolution approving change orders number 1 and 2 to the Plattsburgh Farmers and Crafters Market relocation project, page 72 through 102. Take a motion. Elizabeth Gibbs, second. Jeff Moore. Discussion. So Matt can remind me on this one as well. There was some, I believe it was some plumbing that needed to change. So there was a piece of equipment. In terms of the grand scheme of things, it was a very low cost piece of equipment that needed to be installed, recommended by the manufacturer as part of the ability to move water from that location, which is downhill, to the sewage treatment plant, which is uphill. Even though it's a small distance, the recommended piece of equipment needs to be purchased and installed. So that's part of that work.
And from reading this, the piece of equipment is around $1,000.
Yeah, it's like $900 or something like that. Yeah, but it wasn't budgeted in the plan, so there's that change order to buy the equipment and then do the design and installation.
Oh yeah, I see, $907.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.4, draft resolution approving DRI marketing, signage, and branding project contract extension, page 103. I'll take a motion. Councilor Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales. Discussion. So this is a contract with Boyer Benner Group. There's no cost to the extension of the contract. It is just an extension of the contract for the signage for the signage work that they're doing as part of the DRI. Any further discussion?
This would be the signage. I'm sorry. I know we have the street signs, but when the last time Boyer Benner presented before the council on like sort of regulations for businesses to like have, I guess, what is this extending?
Yeah, it's extending the contract for them to do the signage, branding, and marketing as part of that work that they started last year. There's no, Matt can explain why the contract only lasted for the amount of time that it did, but it seemed like it should have lasted throughout the rest of this year or to the finalization of the actual project itself, which it didn't. But according to the contract extension, there's no cost associated to the extension of the contract.
Okay, yeah, I get. I'm just curious, what still needs to be done? Like, what is being accomplished? I mean, I'm in favor of improving this. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I think part of it was the signage for the Arnie Pavone parking lot and the design of that. There's wayfinding signage, and then I believe Matt. I remember you talking to me about. Oh no, that was a zoning issue. Was there anything else, Matt?
Yeah, there is an online interactive map that was part of that DRI grant project, and Boyer Benner Group has been working on that. There's a beta version of it available on the city website, but probably in the next few weeks, we'll be requesting from the council an agreement that's relevant to the management of that online map. But as the mayor said, there is some additional downtown signage and wayfinding that still needs to be completed, and we feel that the contract extension being requested here would provide more than enough time to get everything done.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.5, draft resolution approving of DRI's Art Park change order number 1 for sewer reconstruction contract. This is pages 104 to 120. Oh, sorry, hold on. All right, I'll take a motion. Councilor Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales, discussion. I'll let you take this one off, Matt.
Sure. During the construction activities for replacement of the Arts Park sewer line, the construction of the park was split into 2 phases. The first of it being the basic relocation of about 120-year-old sewer line that currently runs down the center of the park, which, had it been left in place, would have caused problems with the rest of the construction work during phase 2. Plus, given its age, since we had the grant funding available, we felt it was a good time to put in a new, modern sewer line that would hopefully last another 100 years. So that was completed back in November. But once our contractor, Luck Brothers, started digging into the subsurface of the Arts Park, they found a lot of unknowns that had not been considered when they first bid on the project. And that included some contaminated soil from an old garage that used to be located on the site, which had subsequently been demolished. There was a sewer lateral from one of the adjacent buildings that was found to empty into the existing line, which had to be run basically all the way across the Arts Park with the grade maintained, and some adjustments had to be made to the grade of the new sewer pipe that was being installed accordingly. And they also found a lot of previously unknown former foundations of the buildings. So when they had originally expected to simply dig up soil, put in the new sewer line, and then put the same soil back on it, when they found bricks and concrete and several other less desirable things for fill material, they had to pay the additional cost to have that fill material trucked off site. And then they had to pay for additional fill material that was appropriate for the job to be brought in and dumped back in the hole. So that was the bulk of the funding. While construction was ongoing, Luck wasn't able to provide us with an exact number for what the change order amount would be. But once everything was done and they took a look at all of their expenses, they provided us with a proposed change order at the beginning of December. I had our engineer, Saratoga Associates, take a close look at it to make sure it reflected their understanding and their discussions with our engineer who oversaw the project on site. They agreed with the amounts and with the additional work that was done. So now we're submitting the change order to the council for final approval.
And note that the change order is a zero cost to the city because it's part of the grant. It comes from grant funding.
That's correct.
Any further discussion?
I have a question or two.
Yes, sir, please.
There have been 3 items brought forward for approval tonight. One of those costs $688,000. One's $179,000, and this one's about $190,000, I believe. What's our total budget for that project?
Mike, give me 1 second and I will bring up those numbers. I do know, based on the contracts that the council agreed to move to the main meeting agenda tonight, that we have a little over $7,000 left in construction funding available through the streetscape improvement budget. But one of the nice things about the way that grant is structured is there's $2.9 million total between the streetscape improvement and the riverfront access DRI projects. Now there is funding allocated for construction to specifically the streetscape improvements and specifically the riverfront access projects. But because everything is included within the same grant contract, if the city needs to, say, move funding from the riverfront access project construction pot into the streetscape improvements construction pot in order to complete a project, it is far easier to do that than it would be if those were separate projects. So we do have quite a bit of flexibility in the construction funding for the Arts Park and the Riverwalk and the proposed improvements to Durkee Street.
If you take money out of the other projects, then are you shortchanging them to fund the Arts Park? What was the original amount that was allocated for the Arts Park?
So the original engineer's estimate for the project was about $750,000. This is the rebid for the project. We had originally bid the entire scope of work as a single project. That was in the middle of the first wave of COVID, and we got a very high bid at about $1.25 million. So we made the decision to scrap that bid and rebid it as a phased approach to hopefully save some money by doing it that way. Between the cost of the sewer work and the general construction and the plumbing work, I believe we have reduced the total construction cost by about $130,000 as compared to the original $1.25 million that was bid earlier this year.
By my math, you're at 1.05 million. So that actually sounds better than 1.2 something million.
Yeah.
But
So certainly not as low as we had hoped, but certainly lower than it was the first time we bid this out.
we just don't want to have the city be on the hook for something that the DRI is not going to fund.
I completely agree.
But it sounds like we're covered on this, right, Matt?
That's correct.
Just a quick point of order. I may have misheard you, Mike, but this, by adopting this or by approving this item, this is just simply moving the item to the regular agenda at the next meeting. This isn't formally approving the contract.
Okay. I understand that, but I still want to have my questions answered.
No, I'm not saying that. I just wanted to clarify that one point for especially the newer counselors.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dean.
Any further discussion?
I was just going to add that we do have a capital project out there tracking all this stuff. And, like Matt said, the Riverwalk improvements were originally budgeted $1 million. The Arts Park 750, Durkee Street improvements 550, McDonough Park improvements 500, and admin support and reimbursement 100. So that was the whole 2.9 million. But like Matt said, that can be allocated between those items based on how the construction costs go.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, 3.6 draft resolution approving contract agreement with Ann Russo Holland for consulting services related to the revival of the city's revolving loan program, pages 121 through 127. Can I have a motion, please? Councilor Gibbs, second. Councilor McFarland. Discussion. As most of, well, maybe you don't know, a lot of people don't know in the city that we do have an economic development revolving loan fund. I believe there's a little bit more than $1 million in that fund right now, and that fund is allocated for business growth and opportunities, and those types of business opportunities, and some. I think there's some construction ability to leverage that fund for some construction with caveats to it. However, the question right now about that fund is what's the status of it from the funder's perspective, and mostly just getting the fund in line to make sure that we as a city and a municipality are compliant with using and leveraging that fund, or loaning out that fund and bringing that money back into the city. So this person is being hired under contract to perform that duty, to perform essentially that investigation, to understand the purpose of that fund, how we use that fund, and to make sure that we are in compliance. with how we use that fund. There is a small amount of money, close, a little bit more than what we are spending on this consultant, but there is a small amount of money in that fund already to fund this person's contract to do that work. Any further discussion? Councilor Canales?
Is this a replenishing fund, or is this a fund that's just once it's spent, it's done?
The goal of that fund is, you loan it out, and when people pay it back, they pay back the principal and the interest. The interest is something, the question and why we're hiring this person is, when that money is paid back, what can we do with that money that's paid back, both principal and interest? But ultimately, the money that is paid back goes back into that fund, and we can re-loan it out. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
And I know that Colin had spoken about this last year. Why was this nothing happening with this money? Or this revolving loan fund? I know that was something we did last year. So why did it kind of sit stagnant?
Yeah, so as a lot of us remember, years and years ago, there used to be a community development office that was in full swing, which managed this fund. So they were the ones that were out there promoting the fund and getting applications and making those determinations on funding, on how those funds were. This fund was allocated. A while ago as well, there was a Lake City Local Development Corporation that was tasked with also finding applicants and promoting that fund. But over the years, it just, without the direct management through any community development office or hyperactive LDC, the fund just kind of has been sitting there and not been utilized to its fullest potential. So really the purpose of bringing this person on is to understand exactly what the purpose of this, where the monies can go, how do we leverage this, and in a way that has integrity, and then really take on using this fund to help develop businesses and other projects in the city of Plattsburgh.
So that leads me to another question. If it was at one point managed by a community development office and we have that intact again, is this something that either Matt or Ethan Vincent could handle without hiring a consultant to do it?
Well, I think the administration after the fact, absolutely. But this person that we're hiring is somebody who is going to dig in the old paperwork that we have and understand, and they have a good understanding who the players are right now that they can reach out to understand exactly what this fund is being used for, where it came from, and how do we leverage it appropriately in the future. But after they do that work, and after we have the appropriate use and the how this fund was, how we came to own this fund, at that point I do believe that would be a community development office function to promote and loan out this money, just as that function was before.
I have a
Yes.
one thing I'd like to see at the end of this exercise is that the community development office does have a plan for how they're going to handle these funds moving forward. That would make me more comfortable approving this person to sort of bring us up to date now. But when this person leaves our employment, then what are we going to do after that? That's a question I'd like to have answered.
Well, I want to say that this person is not under our employment. This person is going to be a consultant in a contract to start digging into the source of the fund and the purpose of the fund. Then once that's complete, Councilor Kelly, then that's when the CDO office can leverage these funds for community work. And it's not a fund that can be used internally, but rather it's a loan fund. It's an economic development revolving loan fund that is a loan that other people can use for development projects in the city. But I think at the end of the day, the other side of that is, can we, I guess the other question that will be answered in this process is when those loan funds are repaid with principal and interest, what can we do with that principal and interest? Can we, do we put it back in that loan fund and keep it going? Do we take part of it and put it in a different fund for economic development? But I think before we can even answer that question, we have to understand the reality of the use of that fund, and we just don't have that sense of that right now.
Once we have a sense of that, do you believe that we can move forward and make things going forward with our own existing staff?
Yes, and I would 100% expect that to occur once we understand how to use this money with integrity. Once we understand that, then there's a different conversation for strategy on how to use this revolving loan fund money.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I have another question. How did we go about finding this individual to handle this? Was this someone that the Community Development Office found, or was this someone who solicited her expertise to us? I mean, I'm looking at a letter dated October 26, 2020 from this individual, it looks like. So how did we make the determination that this is the person that we would award this contract?
I think that would be best answered by Mr. Miller, because I don't know how we came about hiring or finding this person. But I will note that this, Ms. Holland has been actively involved in economic development throughout our region. I've had several interactions with her as the former chair of the Economic Development Committee at the county, and I believe she was also an applicant as part of the RFP process to find an economic development consultant for parts of the DRI project. But I will turn the floor to Matt Miller, and he can answer how she was actually found for this project specifically and how she was engaged.
Yeah, and as the mayor said, Ms. Holland was a respondent to the RFP that the city released all the way back in 2018 for a consultant to assist with the RFP process to attract a developer to Durkee Street. Ultimately, the city decided to go with another one of the applicants, not because of anything lacking in Ms. Holland's qualifications. We just felt that for that particular project, a different consultant was more appropriate. But I remember being very impressed with her resume and revisiting this issue of the dormant revolving loan funds has always been on my to-do list. And I regret that it's taken my office so long to get to this point. But earlier this year, Rich and I had a conversation with another consultant that had been made available to us by New York State Office of Community Renewal because we had several questions about one of these loan funds. Now, he was very knowledgeable, but after a 2-hour conversation, I had more questions than I had going into it. It became clear to me at that point that if the city was going to put itself on a solid legal and regulatory footing in order to be able to confidently deploy this $1.9 million in funding, which right now is not doing anybody much good, we were going to have to hire somebody who knew the right people to ask and knew the right questions to ask in order to get us back on that right footing. So when we were having a discussion about this late last year, I recalled Ms. Holland. So we reached out to her and, spoke to her about her level of interest in the project and, whether she had ever done similar projects like this before. She said that she absolutely have. Over the course of her career, she's managed, $75 million in economic development grants. We talked about schedule and the situation that the city's revolving loan fund is in. She gave us her thoughts on a path forward. We asked her for a formal proposal, and that's what we've submitted to the council for consideration.
One other thing she's going to be able to do for us is to work with OCR and the old records that we have in order to determine the funding source of the cash that we actually have on hand right now. That's a mystery to us because The accounting for that was obscured in an old system that was offline and not in our Munis system. So we've reestablished all the accounting in Munis. It's all established there for the $2.1 million of funds we have on hand. And the funding source is going to be very key to this discussion, because some of the funding sources are being required to be sent back to Housing and Community Renewal in Albany as what they call a recapture of program income. Most of what we have out there loaned right now is being recaptured and sent to Albany each year. Last year was $64,000, I believe, and it wasn't lost funding. It was funding that they required to be returned. So as our program income is collected, we have to return that based on the source of the funding that we can determine is covered by this program income funding that OCR has decided to claim. The funds that we have on hand, we need to know the funding source for that. So we're going to try and track back with this lady's help to determine the funding source so we can put it in the right cash accounts. It's been commingled and the accounting has been a mess for years. And so that's one last thing she's going to help us do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, item 4.1, draft resolution authorizing reimbursement of overpayment of fees not to exceed $7,000. Can I take a motion, please? Councilor Canales, second. Councilor Moore. Discussion. So this one is a little convoluted. There was a building within the city of Plattsburgh that was, I guess, not zoned. It was miscategorized as a small commercial property when it was supposed to be, what's it called, Dean? Like, what's it called? What's that word called?
So, the Cliff Notes version, it's a 20-year-old issue where the property was zoned commercial initially at the request of the occupant based on a minor defect within the structure. That defect was since corrected, which would have allowed it to be classified as residential, which would have resulted in a different MLD rate, small commercial versus residential. So that that correction was realized more recently, and that occupant then requested a refund for the period in which it was zoned commercial.
So that's where we're at. Oh. Yeah, I sure did. Okay, we'll go back to 3.7. I skipped 3.7. So yeah, so as Dean said, it was misclassified for about 20 years. The person was charged an electric rate for a misclassification. We're going back to do the work right now to reclassify that and then do the work to understand what his rate should actually have been over the last 20 years, and then issue a refund not to exceed $7,000. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, 3.7, draft resolution authorizing AEDAPC proposal for supplemental architectural and engineering design services for the Plattsburgh Farmers and Crafters Market relocation project, pages 128, 129. I'll take a motion. Elizabeth Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales, discussion. Matt, I'll have you take this one, please.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, the city had originally bid out the farmers market project early in 2020. We received one bid in response. It was deemed not to be a completely valid bid. The council rejected that bid and had my office rebid the project. At that point, what I should have done was to request from AEDA an agreement for supplemental services to cover the additional cost of the rebid and some of the additional engineering work that we were requesting of them in order to complete the project. At that point, it was a lapse on my part, and I apologize to the council. So ADA continued to bill us for that additional work, which was outside the scope of the additional agreement. When we got to a point where the way that I had been tracking the expenses, the original agreement was expended and we still had several months worth of work. I took a look at the accounting. We went back through and pulled all of the off-contract work out. We spoke to ADA based on the fact that we did not have a supplemental agreement in place. I felt that a reasonable discount for the services that they had provided was in order. They were very reasonable about it. They offered to take 20% off of the total off-contract charges, which brought the total down to $9,568, which is the supplemental agreement before the council now. So this is for work that has largely already been done. But one other point to consider is that this will have no impact on the general fund. The Downtown Grant Program has several constituent funds underneath it. The bulk of the money is for physical construction, but there is a $60,000 constituent fund for administrative expenses, and another fund for architectural, engineering, and environmental testing costs. Between those funds, there's over $130,000, $140,000 in those. We have received permission from HCR to charge the soft costs associated with the farmers market project. That's architectural, design, engineering, and environmental testing to either one of those funds. And they have more than enough to cover those costs. So there will be no impact to the general fund.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.1, draft resolution authorizing agreement and authorizations payment, Coughlin and Gerhart LLP, pages 129 through 133. Can I take a motion, please? Councilor Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales, discussion. So this is an agreement, labor attorney agreement that we, apparently the city hired this person last year with no agreement. And so this is what that is. This is the agreement to engage and pay that labor attorney. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. So that's the last item of this agenda. But before we adjourn, just to give people a heads up that we are going to have a post legal counsel meeting. Let's see, I just need to double check on. One second, sorry, one moment. There's a number of legal guidance issues that we are going to have, that I need to have a conversation with Dean, and everybody is certainly invited to join in on that conversation. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question before we adjourn?
About the agenda?
No, I was wondering if we might get an update on, because I know Chamberlain Marks is here, the state of the desk for financing, and what we're doing with it, and if the lockbox is still open for people to drop off bills in it, and what's going on with that.
Lockbox is still open and we're receiving payments in it every day. The doors are open here at City Hall and customers are coming in and being handled one at a time. And of course we disinfect after each one, and whatever they handle is disinfected at the end of the day, like pens and so forth. We do contract tracing for them. So all of the virus protocols are being observed, and still receiving the payments directly mailed to the city as well when we go to the post office.
Okay, so currently things are as they were last year.
I didn't hear that. There's a lot of echoing going on.
So currently things are operating just as they were last year.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So this is also on the same topic for Chamberlain Marks. So my last electric bill has printed on there that I have to mail it to the address in, I think that's Hicksville or something. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, because I also received an email from a constituent advocating for keeping the payment window open and the lockbox, that drop box on Trinity Square Park right there next to City Hall. So just to clarify, you can still use that to pay your bills. You don't have to mail it in, right, Richard? Am I getting that correct?
That's correct. The Dropbox is still open at Trinity Park, and we did change the mailing address to the lockbox address, but some people have already, pre-established the mailing address under their online banking or through their business applications that they use to mail it directly to the city. But we're certainly encouraging everybody to mail to the lockbox address by having that address officially changed on the billing.
All right, any further discussion?
Just as far as transitioning to that legal meeting, Mayor, do you want everyone to join? Oh, sorry, a lot of feedback. Do you want everyone to join the link from the email that Beth had sent just before 10 or just before 11 this morning? Okay, does every counselor have that?
Yes, please. And I believe that email was already sent out. Was sent out again just recently with the legal meeting executive session link. I don't know why I'm air quoting. That's exactly what it is. So right on. and with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. McFarland, second. Gibbs, all in favor? Excellent. And then we're going to end the live stream. Thanks for joining. And then